Welcome to the Raccoon Den. This is Real Estate Raccoons, Spring Team Real Estate, and let's talk week 156. And if you're new here, week 156 is 156 weeks from March of 2020 when COVID began and our markets changed forever. And Toronto kind of became the talk of the world. And I felt like monthly reporting just was not cutting it anymore because we were missing trends that were happening week over week over week. And so here we are, the only team at the Raccoon Den here, well, the only team in Toronto or anywhere really, putting in the work and doing this weekly reporting for very specific communities. Now, don't get it twisted. This is not the same information that's coming from the Toronto Real Estate Board every month that all of the major media outlets like to report on. And sometimes they call me for quotes. Sometimes they don't. I don't know why they don't all the time, to be honest with you, because I don't think there's anybody out there putting in this kind of work to understand the market at this level. So 156 weeks since this all began. So let's get into it right now, talking about mainly the urban markets, because that's where a lot of the really intense activity is right now. So let's get something straight right now. Last week, I don't know if you read my report, where we were talking about whether this was what you would call in the trading world a dead cat bounce. And I'm sorry, Jacqueline from our team, who's a cat lover. I don't really mean any harm to cats, but it's just a term. I didn't invent it. So a dead cat bounce, just to review last week's post, is essentially that kind of artificial sense of the market being back on the upswing after a traumatic kind of declining period that gives people that false sense of the market kind of coming back. And that's where I felt we were last week. But there's serious continued optimism in the market right now. And, I really don't want to frame my this post around our team's experiences and my specific experiences, but it's also really hard to not talk about them. A good example is just last night, my clients lost out on an offer. They were one of 9 offers on a straight up fixer. Like, you can't live in this house, but it's a big detached lot in North Riverdale, which is truly one of the most in-demand communities in the entire greater Toronto area, and for sure in Toronto. Honestly, on a per lot front, like a lot foot or whatever you want to call it, per lot front foot, it's probably even more expensive than Rosedale right now. And the demand is just outrageous. This house we lost out on yesterday was listed at $1.9 million. And remember, you can't live in this house. Listed at $1.9 million. 9 offers later. I don't have the sold price right now, but even my clients who are willing to go up to 2.1 would not have been successful at $2.1 million on this. This is land value we're talking about here. No way would this have happened even a month ago. So I really am now, I'm unsure whether we're sort of in this dead cat bounce type of false upswing situation or whether the market is truly in recovery mode. And I don't really want to get ahead of myself by making claims like that, but it's really tough to say when you also have another property on Ivy, number 82 Ivy, in probably, low key, one of the more underrated areas, but locals know what's up and they're spending their money on these streets like Gerrard and Greenwood area where you have all these cool businesses, and really the profile of that area has changed over the past 5 years and people are slowly realizing it. This house at 82 Ivy, really well done house, 21 offers yesterday. So, and those aren't just 2 instances that we were involved in. Our buyers were not successful. And a lot of buyers right now are super cautious. They're like, hey, wait a minute. I thought the market was like down. I thought I could take my time. But I can officially say that at this point in time, that window of deals or that window of opportunity for buyers to take advantage of a little more, of sellers that kind of were in a tricky situation, the window is closed on that opportunity. So congratulations if you took advantage of those buying opportunities that existed right through until December, mid-January of 2023, but that window is closed. Will it open again? We shall see. It all depends on what happens on Thursday's rate announcement at 10 a.m. Tune in here and I'll talk about it. What I'm assuming is going to happen on Thursday is there's going to be another minor increase in rates based on the strong employment numbers that came out for January. We'll see what the February employment numbers look like, but I suspect they will look similar. As despite all of the news of all of these big companies laying staff off, it pales in comparison to the number of jobs they actually created over the past 3 years. Plus, a lot of other local companies like Snapchat, as an example, are hiring a lot of Toronto talent right now. And same with a lot of very small businesses like the Spring Team. We're hiring marketing staff right now. So if you're one of those people, holler at me. Send me an email. I don't really care for resumes, but find a way to tell me who you are and we'll talk. But I know a countless group of people who are hiring right now. And again, I don't want to base what's happening in the market based on just what I'm seeing in my little sphere, but these are stories that I'm hearing from other business owners across the board. So it is very possible that the absolute bottom of the market is way behind us. And I believe the bottom of the market is behind us, regardless of whether we kind of continue this upward swing or come back down to where we were in December. The bottom of the market is truly behind us. Those big deals are gone. If you are a buyer trying to take advantage of some sellers, you won't be able to right now, no matter what you think, who you think you are, how much money you have on the table. It's just not going to happen for you right now, unless you somehow find a desperate seller out there who doesn't know the value of what they have. In that case, you can take advantage of that person if you're that type of person. But anyway, so the long story short, this Thursday is a very important day. April announcement's a very important announcement, but could it be that buyers are just finally understanding that, okay, so these rates are going to happen. They're finally understanding that long-term Toronto is a pretty strong place to be. Schools are great. Employment long-term looks really good here. Are Torontonians finally just saying, fuck it, I don't have time to play day trader with real estate? Are they finally understanding that you can't time the market? And if you did, you probably got lucky. Or you listen to this report because we're pretty good at timing things around here. That's I have a lot more questions this week than I do have answers, if I'm honest. But if I'm a buyer today, and anytime, me, I'm buying no matter what. There's always room for smart buying and selling decisions, no matter where the market is. But today is a very interesting time in real estate where a lot of people would say, hey, it's on. But again, let's not forget what's happening globally, because a globally aware agent is a good agent. And that's something that very few agents are talking about or are focused on, which has become a big focus of mine over the past little while. You have to be globally aware in order to be able to track where your market is and where it's going. It just adds that extra layer of work that you have to do. But like I've said, there is no substitute for the work. And I said this last week as well. There's 3 or 4 agents that can speak to the market at the level that I can and our team can at Real Estate Raccoons. So be careful where you're getting your information from. There are too many agents out there that are sensationalizing one-off situations and constantly going back in time saying, oh, here's a sad story from the 90s. Let's not forget that. And then, with their big eyebrows kind of just standing there my voice is necessary here, so I have to tell you the truth of this time. It could happen again. And it's very possible that there could be another turn in the market. But when you're comparing what's happening now to an event that happened 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you're not taking the time to do the work to understand why those things happened then and why this is happening now, you've immediately failed and you've lost your audience. So there's a very good reason why people are making purchases right now. And that's because they feel very comfortable in their jobs. There are still many, many people coming here from all over the world who need homes, which is why the rental market is so strong. We've rented a ton of homes this past month to newcomers. And a statistic that I read that is very interesting to me is that 40% of all new Canadians buy real estate within their first year of being here. And that's a huge stat. And that's what fuels the entry-level condo market. And that's what fuels a lot of what's happening in Toronto real estate. And let's remember this foreign buyer ban situation. And like I said, it's not really a ban because the foreign A person who's not a Canadian resident or a citizen or whatever can still buy Toronto real estate. They're just fined like $10,000 for doing so. So it's really more of a tax than it is a ban. But there are so many exemptions to that, and people just aren't buying Toronto real estate and kind of not coming here, and people are treating Toronto like their main place of residence. People who are coming here for work, for school, they're staying and laying down roots here most of the time. So these conversations are going to start heating up again. Like, why doesn't anybody talk about, is this sustainable when the market's on the way down? Everybody's like, no, it's just going to keep going. Like, it's literally based on no fact whatsoever. And we're always talking about, is this sustainable on the way up? And it's just such a dumb argument because, of course, none of those trends are sustainable. And the moment you start having that, is this sustainable conversation, you've completely gone off track and are not adding any value to whomever you're speaking to. Like, none of those scenarios are sustainable. What's sustainable is constant change. That's the only thing that is guaranteed in our real estate market. We're going to go through trends of massive price gains, and then we're going to go through periods of pullback. And I've said this a million times before. Prices don't just come down because they're too high. Prices came down mainly in the suburbs in 2017 when the Ontario Fair Housing Plan was announced by the Wynne government at the time, which introduced like the foreign buyer tax, the stress test, and a whole bunch of other things. So that affected a lot of speculation and things like that. That's what triggered prices to come down. In 2008, there was a traumatic financial experience across the globe. That essentially didn't really cause Toronto prices to be affected that much, to be honest with you. That really put the brakes on in Toronto real estate because there was really no interest rate trigger. Things weren't really getting more expensive for consumers at that time, but there was fear of the unknown at that time. Were these banks going to go out of business? Is my money safe? It was more a fear-based halt in the market at that time. But in 2017, that actually affected people's pocketbook. Like, stress tests meant that I needed to be making more money to qualify for those bigger mortgages. The foreign buyer tax at the time, it was like 15% it started with, and it came up to whatever it is now, 25%. Those things affected people in the pocketbook, so they weren't able to make the same purchases they could before those rule changes came into place. Prices were affected this time because rates went up, as we saw starting March of 2022 all the way until now, dramatically, making, $3,000 a month mortgages cost $5,000 a month, plus. So you have to see what's going to happen again in the future that could potentially affect people's pocketbooks, and prices don't just come down because they're too high. So whenever you're hearing the conversation around, is this sustainable, just completely ignore it because there's really no valid argument to say whether it is or it isn't. Of course it's not. There is going to be an end to it. There always is. So I think I'm just going to stop this post there this week because I'm very, very curious to see what's going to happen on Thursday. We're probably going to have that 25 basis point increase at the time. But if you are a seller, you need to get to market ASAP. Buyers are showing up with big offers that we haven't seen since February of 2022. The volume of offers I haven't seen since February of 2022. The prices aren't quite the same yet, but we'll see what happens. I mean, another few weeks of this kind of activity, and we're going to see a pretty sharp increase in prices. So let's see what the next few days hold. Thursday is an important day. Comment below. Let's have a conversation. I would love to engage in some respectful conversation down there. And as usual, if you have any questions, at Aramamo on all of the socials. Thanks. See you later.